Hey everyone, Laurel here, Minnesota Zone 5A. We have some carnage in the garden. We got our first official frost, got down to 30 degrees by our temperature for one night. Another night, I think high 30s, but yeah, so just going to walk through and look at what got hit, what survived, especially for those in a northern garden or anywhere really that wants to extend your growing season. We can take a look at what we can learn from it, some of the things to plant, what's frost hardy, what is not frost hardy, etc. So some things we know, like coleus. This is what's left of the mini-me watermelon coleus, very frost tender. The salvia also is kind of, the blooms got crispy, but a lot of the plant survived. So salvia is semi-frost hardy. Oh, cat trying to jump up on the table. One of the feral cats. Impatiens, very tender. You can kind of see too, like the top layer of things got frost damage, but then the ones that were more protected underneath the bottom layer is looking more fresh or closer into the pot. Same thing over here, this begonia. Begonia is also very, man, that plane is loud. Also very frost sensitive. And the branches that were kind of sticking further out got more crispy. This one was further up and elevated above the others. But here, the closer it is to the wall and under the overhang is more sheltered. So like this begonia that was kind of towards the back side of the pot suffered, I don't see any damage on this one at all because it was a little bit sheltered. Elephant ears, any tropical things, this is what happens. These were nice, big, and full and green, but the leaves froze, the leaf tissue, and you can see the stems kind of. So this is the perfect time to cut them back. I cut the stems all the way back, dig out the root. Usually the elephant ears are a little bit easier to clean off the tubers. They're like a big round ball. You'll see, I mean, if you've ever seen them in a store for sale. So I usually do clean off most of the soil, cut back the roots, and then just make sure you let them thoroughly dry out until those stems dry out completely. They hold so much water in those stems. So you don't want to enclose them in a box or anything like that. I just put them in a cardboard box. I don't put any packing material with them. Straight in a cardboard box in the basement. I close up the box once the stems are thoroughly dried out. You don't want any moisture getting closed in there and potentially causing rot on your tuber. Same thing, canna lilies, perfect time to cut them back. You know, some of these were a little more protected. You can see the blooms here. So I won't get to everything today. Clearing those out. Cannas are the same thing. You dig up, it's the rhizomus root. So it'll have one big, huge root ball that's all interconnected. That's a little bit harder to get the soil out from in between everything. So I just get off as much loose soil as I can. And then I throw it in a box. Again, you want to make sure the stems are thoroughly dried after you cut them. Before you enclose them in the box, but I just close them up with soil and everything on them, and then it'll all desiccate and be easier to clean out in the spring. Lantana, not killed by a frost. Oh, there's a little bee waking up, or wasp, yellow jacket maybe. The foliage dies back, but it takes like a hard freeze to kill these. I think these are hardy maybe down to zone 8. So if anywhere that gets frost temperatures, they'll die back and go dormant. But until the ground freezes, they won't die off. Some things were very protected too under the, if it's up close to a building or under an overhang, that's one way to protect things. If I were to cover these up, I usually don't this time of year because it's the end of October now. There's no point. We're just going to continue getting colder. But say it was middle of September and I got like an early kind of one random night of cold or a couple nights of cold. That'll happen from time to time. And then we'll warm back up again for another month before we get another frost. So in that case, I'll drape frost cloth over everything just to protect it from dying back early. But you don't have to tuck it behind. You know, the building insulates, so you just have to kind of cover the front of the plants. So you can see my canna tubers over here. Canna leaves got crispy, but not completely. But again, it's just time to clear everything out because the end is coming. Geraniums, very frost hardy. Everything had frost on it. I took some really pretty pictures that morning. And you can see there are some leaves that got some damage. This is a dahlia tuber. Got a little bit of frost nip, but for the most part, no. You know, all you have to do is pick off those damaged leaves if you're going to save these, which I will indoors. So geraniums you don't have to worry about. This is an ornamental oregano. Sometimes these are hardy here in our winter, depending on the winter we have. So oregano, rosemary, sage, we'll see some of that in the back. I did tuck some of these geraniums up a little bit closer, just to save them. Meizu is very frost tolerant. That one was in the shade, so it's looking kind of ratty, but no real damage. This sweet potato vine, one of the most tender things. And again, you can see how like things that were pressed up, like the bottom layers that had this over the top and were pressed more against the side of the pot, didn't suffer as much damage as the pieces that were more exposed to that cold 30-degree air. Plectranthus, this overwinters beautifully indoors as a houseplant, even in a sunny window. Just keep it more watered than you usually do outside. But like you can kind of see where the line of warm to insulating air being more insulated on the side of the house here is, because these pieces, and what's cool about cerveza and lime is even when it's all dried up and crispy and gross, it still smells amazing. Like last year I don't keep the huge ones just because they're too much to manage. I'll buy a starter plant in the fall on clearance, and this is when I overwinter, just because it's really hard to, they get really big in one season. So the ones that I plant out and get huge, I let those die naturally with the cold. But last year I did that, and I had cut this way back, you know, and dumped it in my yard waste bags, which sat in the out in the garage all winter. And when I went to go empty them out in the spring after the yard waste disposal site opened again, they still smelled like cerveza and lime. They smelled like limeade. So it's such a cool plant. Lysmachia, there are like Goldilocks style creeping Jenny is hardy down to maybe zone 3 or 4. This one is not. This is the Waikiki Sunset, but still frost tolerant. It didn't sustain hardly any damage. Vinca is another one that is hardy in a lot of zones, a lot of colder zones as well. This lantana was out a little bit more, so it got crispy, but you can see underneath it's still, but this is good. This makes it a lot easier to clear things out. The other canna got fried. Snapdragons did awesome. These are the Twinny Peach down here. The cat just jumped on top of them. But the ones out in the landscape I'll show you too. Those did well. Wire vine too. This is the first year I planted it, and that was unbothered. Calibrachoa is another one. This time of year, unfortunately, they just look tired. If I had been trimming all the way up through the end of September, it would probably look nicer now, but I just let them go. This salvia, that one was ready to go anyways. Monkey flower. This is the first year I've grown monkey flower. And this actually, I expected it might be killed off. I know it leaves like cooler temperatures, but that was all covered in frost and came out looking fresh. Same thing with the one over there on the pot in the ground. These two planters are ready to go. My begonias, not so much. The verbena was already looking kind of icky, but verbena not bothered at all. And there's calibrachoa in there too, not bothered at all. It's just tired now at the end of the season. Purslane, these got crispy. I put these on the ground so that they could get maybe a little bit of shelter because I still want to harvest some seeds. So I was hoping that the bottom parts, instead of being up on the table where they were, that they wouldn't get completely fried. And it looks like there are some strands that are still good. The poor dahlias, not at all frost hardy. So I'll be able to dig these tubers out. You can see the blooms are all looking sad. I really wanted to make another bouquet before the frost came, but I just ran out of time the night before. So, oh well. Next year, you know, as a new season, they'll be glorious. So now I can get these dug up and Actually, over in the middle part, I have a few things that I need to plant, some perennials, so I'm glad that these got killed off. But even so, there's still some foliage down towards the ground. But once they get frosted, it's the perfect time to dig them out and save your tubers. Of course, perennials and evergreens. You can see these were a little bit more exposed to the cold air, these geraniums, and there is some frostbite on the leaves, but nothing huge. I'm surprised this wire vine did so well. Like, look, this had no damage at all versus the purslane that was in here. Yeah, I just had some really pretty pictures. A lot of my in-ground, so the 4 o'clocks are goners. Of course, this coleus that was here, the Wicked Witch coleus, is a goner. Zinnias don't like frost. They can take the cooler temperatures, but the only parts that survived are the parts that were a little bit sheltered by other greenery. The diacia here, I just noticed it's like climbing all up in the, it's so cool. It's climbing all up in the hydrangea, but that's in the Nemesia family. Those are very hardy plants. Not hardy to our zoned winter, but frost hardy. I have a couple of verbena down here that did just fine. This salvia I kind of expected to be a little more fried because it was covered in frost. This is the Playing the Blues salvia, but that looks like no damage at all, just some broken branches from earlier in the summer. Gomphrena doesn't do great with freezing air. A light frost, it's fine, but a true frost. Although some of these flowers, you know, the stem doesn't look great, but I always say I'm going to save, dry the flowers, but then I just get too busy. So, but I have heard that the color preserves well in dried Gomphrena flowers. So the diacia over here, it's just looking tired again from summer. There's a little bit of frost damage, but not too much. That came out of it pretty well. Same thing with this verbena in the ground, not bothered at all. What's interesting is these hosta got really damaged. These are the autumn frost hosta. I have 2 of them here. So I wonder if there's, sometimes I feel like there's like a pocket of colder air. I don't know how little microclimates work, but all the other hostas seem okay. Some of them got some frost damage more so than others, but these 2 got it really bad. The conocloa grass, of course, perennials. They just go dormant. The Persian shield, however, is completely toast. But the diacia around it is fine, as well as angelonia. Those like heat. So they can take a light frost, but not a hard frost. And now the rest of my torchlight coleus is gone. There's Mama Cat sitting right over there. I don't know if she's looking at there was a squirrel fight the other day. One of them fell out of a tree. And me and one of the feral cats witnessed the whole thing. But the other feral cat, I think, was just so entertained, too. And then the squirrel popped up and ran back up the tree. So, it was exciting. Zinnias, this raspberry cream Gomphrena got frosted. I have the elephant ear and the canna over in those 2 pots over there. So they got frosted. Of course, the calibrachoa here, unbothered. They don't mind a little bit of frost. Begonias got toasted over here. And then I had some impatiens in the ground also, all got toasted. So those are gone. This basket, though, all frost tolerant. So we've got the Lophos, is the long hanging here, with the beautiful pink blooms. Lophos didn't mind. Petunias didn't mind the frost at all. And this verbena didn't mind the frost. And I even have a scaevola over here that didn't mind the frost either, although this one's a little more sheltered. So that survived. Those are things you can plant, especially if you get very late or very early frosts where you live. All the snapdragons did just great, and I've got a whole bunch of blooms coming. I hope we have enough time for these to open. They didn't mind at all. Annual rudbeckia. I think the flowers, some of the blooms turned brown from the frost. They were kind of turning brown already, but the plants themselves don't mind. I don't know what zone these particular ones are hardy to. It's not my zone, but my poor beautiful coleus over here, all gone. Henna and Inferno I had. Sun King Aurelia too. Of course, this is perennial, but this does brown very fast once we get a true frost, once those leaves freeze. You can see my beautiful blue juniper. The vinca over here survived, as did ivy. English ivy, I have a couple different kinds in here. And the alternanthera, though, did not. That got crispy. Again, that can take a light frost, not a hard frost. And more snapdragons still blooming. I was hoping these would, I knew they wouldn't, but I was kind of hoping because I have some perennials to plant out here. But that's okay. I can overwinter. If I don't get to it, I can overwinter the perennials in my shed and or on the porch and plant them in the spring. Look at all the red berries on the barberry over here. I have 3, not golden rocket, but they're similar. They're like an upright golden chartreuse barberry, but late in the season they turn darker green. Early on they're bright chartreuse. Millennium allium, I love how the stems turn yellow. These really just offer so much interest. All of the ageratum is done. That is not at all frost tolerant. So the last light frost we got, kind of the tops of these plants got burned back, and now they're completely dead-zo. Same thing with the zinnias in my planter and the angelonia over here. Those all got burned out. Marigolds too. I think it depends on where they are. The ones that are a little more sheltered survived. Some of them, the blooms look fresh, but the foliage died, and vice versa for others. Beans also do not like hard frost, but I was more than ready to pull these out, so glad of that. Strawberries don't care. They'll take whatever you throw at them. They're just fine. Carrots, now is the perfect time to harvest. I don't think I'll have time for a little while. As long as the soil isn't frozen and you can pull them out, you can harvest. They'll even sometimes last through winter. But of course, once the soil freezes, you can't really harvest them. So this planter, the only thing that got frosted was the alternanthera over here. Otherwise, the English ivy, the, why do I want to say button vine? I just said it. Wire vine is doing good. The annual rudbeckia, those were kind of petering out their blooms anyway. And this carex all survived the frost. I think this gomphrena was a little more sheltered. It's just not looking great though. But cosmos got fried, so those can come out. All the zinnias over here, the marigolds in the back were a little more protected against the house. Although I do have an evergreen to plant here, so those will be coming out today. And then the plectranthus got frost damage or death in this container. But the verbena, the Bermuda Beach supertunia, and the snapdragons I have planted in here did not. Strawflower, also, I hadn't really grown this before, but this is looking fresh. Let's see, I have some others. Yeah, there are. See this one over here too. I have a couple of them. Hopefully you can see. I cannot see anything on the screen right now. The sun is too bright. So, strawflower. Learned something new. Those are frost tolerant. So that's cool. Again, stuff over here. My peppers, I did harvest. Oh, the leaf just attacked me. Everything on this pepper plant I harvested before the frost, the night before, and that was a huge bag of green peppers. And I still have all of these plants, 7 more plants over here, and they all have just tons of fruit on them still. Well, a good amount of fruit, more than I can eat in the next week or 2 before it goes bad. So I did put frost cloth over these plants. I didn't tuck it in real well or, move anything around against the fence. I just wanted to keep the fruit from freezing on the plant. If I could just keep it enough for another week before I harvest, that was my goal. So hopefully, I mean, the fruit didn't freeze. So hopefully I can harvest those next week and cook with them. I already cooked with the first batch. We've got Calibrachoa looking great, Verbena looking great. This is a tarragon plant, and this is hardy here. I leave this pot out all winter, and it keeps resprouting in the spring. So marigolds, some look better than others over here. Again, whatever blooms are harvestable. My friend is coming over to harvest these, so I can start clearing out this area. And these marigolds, these all got covered. Part of this one, and you can see like the end of the frost cloth I kind of left open, so the pepper plants down here are much more fried, but the fruit's still good. It didn't, some of it, you know, is about to turn, and we are going to, like, we're in the 60s today. I don't know if it'll have time, but I'm just happy if it can just stay on the plant for just a little while longer. This little group ring was under the frost cloth, though again, the frost cloth wasn't tucked behind. It was draped over the fence, and I pinned it down, but I didn't tuck it all the way to the ground. So that allows cold air to get up. The idea of frost cloth is if you can fasten it to the ground, then it will hold in some of the heat. The ground is warmer than the air, so it will hold in some of the heat from the ground and protect against frost damage. So I knew it probably wasn't going to do that, but the Angelonia got damaged, but not a speck of damage on, and I'm glad because it started blooming now on this African daisy, the osteospermum. Nemesia, very hardy, so that did great. And the verbena, the pentas, not so much. That's heat-loving plant, so even under the frost cloth. But air was also, I didn't tuck it in on this side, so air was also able to blow in this way. These geraniums did fine. I tucked those under just in case. And I had some petunias and some nicotiana. And then all the marigolds in these did pretty good because they were protected for the most part. So some of the plants in the middle, that were more in the middle of the frost cloth, were doing better. But this one, like, that one's almost, I don't know if it'll turn, but like I said, if I can just give it a few more days to a week. So yeah, zucchini, not looking great. Although I have some fruit forming. If the vine, I think, is not dead, so I'm just hopeful that, I didn't cover this at all, but I was hoping that fruit would be kind of preserved being close to the ground, and it looks like it was. So if it can, I don't know if it'll continue to ripen or not, but I think some of them are big enough to at least harvest a small zucchini. The Victoria Blue Salvia, not bothered at all. This one I kind of knocked into. I think I might have broken the root on that one. And like this marigold was uncovered and completely exposed. Oh my gosh, I missed a fruit. Look at that. Oh, and it's harvestable, it looks like. What do you know? Also cabbage, completely, any brassica, completely frost tolerant. Those don't mind at all. That one just refused. That's about the same size it was when I planted it. I had 2 cabbage growing here that I started from seed that were like kind of an early cabbage. And so I harvested those in July. I planted this long hot pepper here, which I did get a crop from on clearance. You know, garden centers start clearancing their vegetables here in July in this zone. And then this cabbage I got for like $2 on clearance, maybe $1.50. And I was kind of thinking, like, why did I, like, I can buy a cabbage for $2, but you know, it's fun to grow your own, but it did nothing. So that was a fail. Total fail. I shoved these over here to cover some of the, I was hoping some of the geraniums that I want to save and overwinter would not freeze out. So I just used these things. These are the types of things that I put on the soil when the soil is empty to keep the feral cats from using the raised beds. It's like a giant, beautiful litter box to them. So I did tuck this geranium up against the side, hoping it would be a little bit insulated, and it looks like it was. Basil, though, nah, that could not take frost at all. The light frost that we had last week, it was fine, but barely anything got damaged by that. But this one, now it's done for. But these herbs, however, rosemary, sage, oregano, I did not cover this planter at all, so you can see some of the marigolds got crispy. But I don't cut this stuff back until we get a freeze. If it's gonna go below 30, then I'll harvest. Rosemary freezes really well, so I cut this back, use it, I freeze it, and eat off of it all winter. Sage dries really well, so I tend to use this more in the fall. And oregano, of course, dries well. I haven't grown oregano for eating in a while. You can see this Sun King Aurelia got pretty crispy, so it got cold here, and this looks messy. When I don't usually cut back my perennials, even if they look messy. I don't really care that much for the fall garden. Ferns got crispy from the frost. This is a crested surf fern. Jacob's ladder is semi-evergreen for me. As long as we get some snow cover, that one comes out of winter with surviving fronds. Ferns back here, I think, were a little bit more sheltered. Lungwort is also semi-evergreen. And hellebore, of course. I usually cut those back unless they have, a lot of mine got powdery mildew this year, so I might cut them back just to keep from overwintering those spores. Geum is also semi-evergreen for me, and things that are semi-evergreen are more evergreen if they have snow cover to insulate them in the wintertime. Same thing with lamb's ear. These were a little bit sheltered. This is another ageratum. You can see there is fresh green underneath. But again, I'm not going to bother with anything. And you can see these beautiful lacy looking bloom heads on the drops of Jupiter oregano. This is what I struggle with because it seeds itself everywhere. Over here, I don't know if it's going to become an issue or not because I plant thickly, so a lot of things just don't have room to really flourish. But it's so pretty, and this one still has a little bit of purple color. But these lacy blooms are so pretty in the snow. So I want them over the winter. I just don't want them to self-seed everywhere. This coprosmia, I expected this. This is an annual. I expected this to be completely fried, but it is not. I won't have room to save that, but that is note to self for future years. If I can get that on clearance at the end of the season and overwinter a smaller specimen. The frost did take all the color out of the hydrangea blooms. They were on their way out anyway. The firelights last week still had a good amount of sort of raspberry pink, but the frost definitely turns them brown. But I love how back to recording. I love how the different blooms, you know, they have different bloom color during the season, but then the dried blooms have different colors too. And these will turn more brown and they'll all be crispy brown, but these will be darker brown than the little lime blooms, which are lighter brown. So they really just have so many seasons of interest. I think next year, I love this shrub, but it closes off this pathway and it kind of drapes over everything. These blooms really droop quite a bit. And I have another little lime over there in full sun against the shed. So I think I'm going to replace this one with a little quick fire because those blooms won't droop as much, and I think I'll rearrange a couple things over here and make more of an evergreen screen as well against the fence. But I have all winter to think about that, and plan. Definitely don't have time for that this fall. But yeah, I leave up most, if I get to cutting stuff back, like if I get to pulling down the cosmos before it freezes, great. If not, oh well, I'll do it in the spring. I virtually cut back all of my perennials in the springtime, early spring. Rarely do I have even time to do it in the fall because of all the clean out of my annuals and my containers. Sometimes, I don't know, it just depends. Some things, like if they harbor disease, like fungal disease, I'll want to cut those back in the fall so that those spores don't overwinter. But I get to what I can get to. This juniper still looks so pretty with its blueberries. I'm planting another one of these behind the shed where those marigolds are, behind the garage. Because this only gets about 2 feet wide, and the branches are very easily trimmable if you get a stray branch that gets wide. So, very cool and decorative. The Limelight Prime hydrangeas stayed more pink, but these are later to bloom and later to turn color than the Firelights. The Firelights are some of the earliest ones, Little Quickfire and Firelight, at least in my experience. And the arborvitaes are shedding. Right now, this is what they do every fall. I don't know what kind these are. They've been here a long time, clearly, but they're all their brown branches, and those kind of drop down. You can see them all over the grass here. That's normal. Got the bobo hydrangeas, the geraniums. Well, the blooms got fried, but the geraniums in this pot survived. It's just the coleus did not, obviously. I love the beautiful gold color on the leaves of the hydrangeas too. This Lismachia, this whole container, except for the polka dot plant, which already had a rough summer, that all is fine. Grasses are usually fine. I have had fountain grass sometimes die back. I guess it just depends. It depends too on how many hours of cold air there was. If it was just brief, there's less damage. If it was, 4 or 5 hours overnight, there's more damage. This Meizu survived pretty much everything but the begonia, and this planter survives frost. It's just all looking tired. I will go over all the things I'm going to overwinter in a separate video. Let's see. I'll look over here. My Kimberly Queen Fern, it's like the ends of the fronds got kind of, if I'm going to give this away, I should probably, I didn't bother to cover it because it's tucked up against the house, and it looks like not too bad of damage, but I'm not going to overwinter this. I will save it. The pieces of polka dot plant that were shielded by the fern survived, but the ones that were exposed did not. Same thing down here. The vinca, I will try to overwinter all the vincas that I grew. Everything else got frosty. But over here, this is another example, like the pilea that was more exposed. These branches got frosted where the others are still fresh looking. Of course, any of the caladium, not so much. Not at all. They did not survive. This plectranthus, the more exposed pieces got burned. Euphorbia, I think that one's diamond snow. Those are very frost hardy. And licorice vine, this variegated licorice vine. One of the more, that can almost that can take a freeze pretty much. I will be pulling out this Tradescantia that was shielded from the frost, but I do overwinter that as a house plant. So I'll be clearing that out. This whole area, look at this cabbage. It turned really purple with the cold. That's an ornamental cabbage. I grew that from seed in the spring. They're super easy to grow from seed. They get real long and leggy, so it helps if you can. You don't want them to be the centerpiece necessarily. You want stuff around them because they get long stems. Here the Dusty Miller is fine. Here's another white licorice vine. This stuff was fairly shielded, so like the begonia died back, but only so far to the branches that were shielded. Same thing with this Alternanthera. The more exposed pieces got frosted, but the stuff that was more shielded against the house over here did okay. This bean vine, the little sprouts that were coming out have died back. That's a hyacinth bean vine. Ruby Moon, and the Bacopa, also frost tolerant. So Calibrachoa, petunias, verbena, I have a ton of these over here. None of them were bothered whatsoever. Angelonia got crispy. This salvia got crispy. It was already getting crispy though. I was just kind of letting it go in anticipation of pulling it out here soon. And over here, this Dusty Miller, Mercury, looking great. But the begonia is a goner. The coleus is a goner. Alternanthera. I had shoved this evergreen up against the planter, and parts of the sweet potato vine that were sort of insulated up against the The arborvitae survived, but the pieces that were exposed did not. Snow Princess Alyssum, still looking, this is an amazing plant, still looking gorgeous. That's not bothered by frost at all. I don't think any kind of Dusty Miller is. This lantana didn't have too much damage because it was pretty shielded both by these planters and the air conditioning unit, and it being close to the house over here. And then this euphorbia. Those are very frost tolerant. So is the Senecio Angel Wings. That did great. I will be overwintering at least the corms from this oxalis, but that was, I think it has maybe a little damage on the leaves, but it actually just looks kind of cool. So, and another of these Caprosmia, this one is even less damage because it was more shielded by the house. You can see how big these get. But the elephant ears over here got real droopy. There's some more plants that I overwinter that weren't bothered by the frost. I do put this ivy, this Algerian ivy. I've had this for years. I put it on the porch, so it goes dormant for winter, but then I just cut it hard and it resprouts every spring. Same thing with sedum, the lemon ball. I don't know which is lemon ball. They're literally the same plant, just different names. Lemon ball and lemon coral sedum. Those, whoops, stepped on a cat dish. Those I overwinter on the porch. And they do die back, but they always resprout in the spring. And you can see how big of a difference it makes. This was uncovered, but it's right up in the corner of the building, and it has an overhang. And barely any damage on this coleus when it was 30 degrees out here for several hours. There's just a few little spots, but like I could cut that back and it would keep going. It's crazy. Like just how insulating those things can be. Everything else in here, though, is frost hardy, including this gorgeous Nemesia. Look how pretty that is. That's the Aromance Mulberry, I think. I bought that on clearance end of season. There's Mama Cat again. Hey, Mama. This little planter, the fall planter, I did tuck it more up against the house, but so like this Alternanthera got crispy. I could even cut that back, but the ornamental cabbage is just fine. Mums are just fine. The rooster grass did just fine. Those would die in a freeze. The mums might even survive winter, just go dormant. Let's peek up front here. This planter unbothered vinca, just being shielded against the house too. I don't know if this the spikes of Dracaena would survive, but geraniums and vinca don't mind frost at all. Look at the pretty color on the torch hydrangea. I should be able to plant that today, hopefully. My friend's going to come. There are marigolds planted now where it's going to go. So once she gets those blooms, I'll be putting that in. This little volunteer viola, I'll be curious if that even survives winter right there. We'll see. It'll be covered in snow. Any snow we do get, because of course that's where we all shovel it all. All the begonias in this bed died back, and then the heliotrope as well. Well, parts of it are alive. But again, even the blooms on the snapdragons don't mind frost at all. Oh, I see budworm damage. Those little rats. Well, the budworms will die when it freezes, that's for sure. But then they'll float up on air currents from the south again. Crazy that they do that, but not till the end of next summer. So vinca, the annual vinca died back. The annual, I planted a whole bunch of annual dianthus, which I have had it not be annual for me. So I'm hoping at least some of this comes back, if not all of it, in this bed. This is what I'm most sad about. I loved these begonias up here this year. They were so pretty. So I can trim these back because pieces of them survived that were more sheltered. And maybe I'll do that today just because I probably won't clear these pots. I mean, it takes a lot longer than one day or even 1 week to put out all the pots and plant them. So cleaning them out takes just as long for storage, if not longer. But it's funny, this little Pilea and begonia is more sheltered, sort of under the overhang from the house and this smoke bush tree. I didn't have it out on this thing because it's kind of twisted. I've just been keeping it on this step. So that one looks fresh. I might even try overwintering that if I have space. We shall see. This one definitely got more frost damage because it's much more exposed. Still didn't get killed back all the way, but pretty damaged. But even like the back side of the planters are looking better because they were up against the house and a little more sheltered. Not even being up against the house, but closer to the house. But these had no shelter at all. Oh, they're so pretty. They have fresh foliage at the bottom layers, so maybe I'll just come and hack off the tops. Oh, look, a viola self-seeded down here too, in the crack of my... I have to decide what to do with this railroad tie thing. That's I don't know how many years, long before we bought this house. I do like having a little planter here, but I got to figure out what I want to do eventually because this thing is kind of on its last legs. Stuff in the ground, verbena, again, same story. Verbena, petunias, calibrachoa, just fine. This is a hardy mum. It gets much deeper color. Look how big that bloom is. It's pretty. It's getting more sun this year since I took out things that were crowding it. Maybe next year I'll have to do more trimming of it early on. See how it does. But my salvia got real crispy. I like the blooms are still bright red though, even though they got frozen. But yeah, and snapdragons over here also looking fresh. I don't remember, I did a whole bunch of mixed kinds. Isn't that pretty? So, and then this salvia, this is the rockin' deep purple. That one got crispy. Just annuals. Again, the annual rudbeckia didn't mind. Some of the blooms had some frost damage on the petals over here, but a lot of these were just dried out. I'm just letting them go to seed because that's how they ended up here in the first place. They seeded themselves. So I would love them to continue doing that because it is free and easy. Yeah, the scaevola didn't get any. It was already looking crummy at the end of the summer, but it didn't get any frost damage. Dichondra silver falls, very frost tolerant. You know, I won't pull up these strands in the ground. When I put this pot away, I'll just cut them off. And sometimes they'll come back. They'll resprout in the spring. So we'll see. Synesio angel wings. I haven't had luck keeping that. I tried a couple years to keep that as an annual indoors over winter and failed, so I give up. Some of these geraniums got pretty crispy. I'm not sure if I'll have time to save all these or not. This poor salvia, or coleus. This was another henna coleus. It was really beautiful. So I'll cut that back though, because now the blue shadow Fothergilla is in its full fall color. So that'll kind of take over. It'll look nice and pretty there. And I can get rid of the coleus. It was kind of a distraction. This was Vermillionaire Kufia. I know these are hardy. I want to say zone 10. So I'm guessing, you know, if you were in zone 10, you could cut it off and it would resprout. I am overwintering 2 of those, so I'm not going to bother digging that up to overwinter. I already have 2 ready to go. A little more color here on the limoncello barberry. You can see how brilliant it gets. It's funny, this one little patch is turning ahead of time, but it gets really bright fall color. So excited to see that. This is the patch of marigolds that I'll be ripping out. We're harvesting the blooms today, and the torch hydrangea will go in here. So some got kind of crispy, but for the most part, this area stays warmer. Being tucked between the 2 houses is just always much warmer than everywhere else. The balsam, I'm going to leave a lot of stuff in here over the winter in the hopes that it will deter, even though it'll freeze. I'm just going to kind of leave it messy in the hopes that it will create obstacles for the feral cats using this so much as a litter box. I might have to get some cat scat mats or maybe chicken wire to lay down in the open spaces. But man, they sure do use this as a litter box quite a bit. But the Victoria Blue Salvia looks great over here still. Even the sweet potato vine, this is how warm it is being tucked up against the house. Just a few leaves got crispy and that's it. All the salvia over here is fine. Grasses over here, the ornamental cabbage, I mean, it's looking pretty overgrown. But it's cool looking. And everything else is perennial. My dogwood turns a beautiful color. So some of the leaves got a little frozen, but what's hard is when we get a real hard freeze early on and then you don't get any fall color. The leaves just freeze, and that's that. So yeah, I'll leave you there. Some ideas of season extender plants, or sometimes in the fall or late summer, I'll make a fall container, but with clearance summer annuals. So this gives you ideas of what you can purchase on clearance in the summer to make your fall containers for cheap, and what's going to last through a frost or two. So I'm always observing and noting stuff like that. Good way to save money doing it that way. So yeah. Well, stay tuned. I'll do a video here pretty soon, and probably film today, just going over everything that I plan to overwinter as far as annuals go. I have some grow lights set up in the basement. I'm hoping I can get those linked. They're from Amazon. And eventually show you that. It's a mess right now. So, but anyway, yeah. I'll go over the annuals that I'm going to attempt overwintering. And this is a big training year for me, or experimental year. So we'll see how it goes. So yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for watching, commenting, liking. I appreciate everything that you all do. It's just really fun to do this. I very much enjoy it. So thanks again. Have a great day.